don't know how I do the internet. Well, let's get started, folks. Thanks for being here. We're really happy to have you, and we're all over literally all over the country today, and so thank you for being here. A couple things. This is really important. We need to update your resumes. We have to do that every once in a while, and so that we need your most current resume showing the courses that you teach at Vista College. So if you could, between now and the end of the year, can you believe I'm saying the end of the year? It's not far, right? If you can, between now and the end of the year, update your resume, courses that you teach at Vista College, and email that to Tanya, Sarah, and copy me. I will have this done by January 15th. I'd like to close out the year by just having it done. But anyway, that's the deadline where we have to have your faculty files up. So any questions on that? That's an important task that we need done. And you know, when you teach for an accredited college, you've got to show that you've got the credentials and experience to teach those courses. And that's the reason we're asking you to put the courses you teach and current resume, and we'll be able to pass the accreditation and the compliance, folks. So that would be much appreciated. Let's see. Sherry, do you want to do the honors on the AR award?
I am so depressed she's not here.
Oh.
Our AR winner this month really goes above and beyond. I was actually surprised that she had never won before. She'll call students in other classes. She works with first-time students. She's never missed a deadline ever. I always know I can rely on her for everything. McDade. So, and she could not be here tonight, but she's a wonderful instructor. So if you guys ever need anything, let me know about her.
Woo! Hey. Woo! Can we send her an email, say congratulations?
I will right now. I just didn't want to do it before it was time.
Yeah,
send her one of those fun ones.
Yeah, she's moving, and so I'm sorry that she's not here, but was pretty much
the first meeting she's ever missed too.
Is that right? Oh, well, she deserves it.
You say she never misses a meeting, then she misses a meeting where she's getting an award.
Yeah. All right. Tanya, do you want to take attendance, please? Do you mind?
Sure. Beth Lee. Cassandra's not here, correct?
Correct. And David Powell isn't here either. He had a meeting for work.
Okay. Dan Jones. Dan Wursler.
Here.
Daryl Culpepper. Dave DeFabio. Dawn Pearson. Jared, you're here.
Yeah, I'm here. It's Dave DeFabio, sorry.
Oh, thank you. Kara Wagner. Kevin Smith.
Kevin had another meeting. I thought I saw an email.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's right.
All right, Christy Westmont. Rick McElroy. Sabrina.
I'm here.
Thank you. Tracy Eason. And Twana Ellis.
Some of this is drive time, home time for our teachers.
Okay, that's all I've got.
All righty, thank you. Well, it's important that we take attendance. First of all, that's how we get you paid for attending the meeting. And secondly, and most importantly, that's how we show the accreditors that you do attend faculty meetings. And today's a real important meeting in that we have to do a compliance issue and talk about FERPA, and all of you will receive a certificate for attending the training on the FERPA training, and it'll be in your files. So when we talk about FERPA, what comes to mind? I'll just pick on anybody. Anita, what comes to mind when we talk about FERPA?
Not sure, to be honest. Exactly.
Private.
I'm not sure. I mean, I have an idea, but
Yeah.
Doesn't it have to do with student privacy?
Yeah, it's student
Compliance.
privacy and the need to know.
Okay.
the need to know.
Okay, so exactly. And you know what, Anita, I'm glad you said I'm not sure, because, you know, honestly, we all hear the term FERPA, like we hear
Right.
HIPAA and
Right.
things, and I don't know that sometimes we know exactly what that is. So thank you for that. That's
Yes. Yes.
So FERPA, see that red P? That red P means something, privacy, right?
Right.
So FERPA is the Family, Educational Rights, and Privacy Act. Family, Educational Rights, and Privacy Act. It was enacted in 1974, but basically it establishes rules that access to and use of students' personally identifiable information. And in an online world, it's kind of interesting because you're not in an office, but you do see things as an online instructor, and it's really important that we talk about what you can share and what you can't share. And you may get a call from a mom asking about how the student's doing in your classroom. That's something you need to be aware of, that you can't do it unless there's something in writing in a file. And so we want to talk today a little bit about what you can do and what you can't do in an online world that we all live in. Primary objectives are protect the privacy of education records. And do you have education records when you're teaching a class in an online world? Do you have it? Do you have a record? What do you think? Dan, you do, don't you? Well, there are records. There records that you shouldn't share with other students or with those that don't have the right to know, the right to access it. Provide students with access to their records, and they have a right to access to their records. Allow students to challenge and request correction of an inaccurate or misleading information in the records. So we'll talk a little bit about the kinds of records that you have. You have attendance, probably. You have notes that you put into a dropout detective. I know you're doing that. You have grades. You know, do they have the access to all that? Is the question mark, right? So we can talk a little bit about that. I'm going to draw on Lydia. I'm going to draw on Sherry and Rick. Sherry and Rick are attorneys, and Lydia is very well versed. So as we go through this session, we might. I'm asking Lydia, and I'm asking Sherry and Rick to comment as we go along, because it's really important that we not violate FERPA for a lot of reasons. It's a compliance issue, but it can damage somebody's life, and it can be a real issue for the institution if you're not careful with who you can disclose and who you can't disclose information to. VISTA is required to give annual notice to active students of their FERPA rights and access to inspect and challenge their educational records. So all students will receive a notice that says, hey, you've got the right. Protecting privacy is what we're all about. And protecting privacy is until they are eligible student. FERPA protection applies to a student's parents. What does that mean? until they are eligible students. FERPA protection applies to a student's parent. What do you think that means? Sherry, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Sorry, my internet keeps going up and down. I'm not sure why, because I'm at home. So if I cut out, that's why. What was the question again? What?
Protecting the privacy. Until they are eligible students, FERPA protection applies to a student's parents. What's that mean? You think?
You're not allowed to release information on their parents as well, obviously. Also, eligible students doesn't exist until they turn 18 or when they attend a post-secondary institution, no matter how old they are. And then that's considered eligible. They don't have to actually be enrolled. As soon as they provide their information, it's covered.
Right. So in our case, all of our students, FERPA applies to, correct? Because all of our students are graduated high school. I don't know that we have anybody that's under 18. I don't think we do. But in our case, FERPA applies to students. So FERPA protects the education records of all students in attendance who are or have been in attendance. So let's say somebody drops from one of our courses, just gone. Does the record, do we have the responsibility to imply or respect FERPA? Yes, we do. Any student who has been here or who has left, those records are FERPA protected.
And the only way they can get is by warrant.
Is by what now,
warrant.
Rick? Go ahead, say it.
The only way they can get those is by warrant.
Well, by having legal, just because an attorney calls you doesn't mean you have to give it to them.
No, but a warrant would allow them to get it if they're not, if there's an adverse action going on. So they can get permission to get it, but if they don't, a court can order that the records be made available.
Sure. Okay, now much of this, you're probably saying, well, what has it got to do with me as a faculty member? I get it. Most of the training really is centered on those that are in the office at the corporate headquarters. But then again, it's kind of different in the online world. So we're going to try to a little bit quicker and just think about and be thinking about how it applies to me as an instructor today. So educational records are information that identify an individual student, are recorded and maintained by the school. So in our case, what would be an example of an education record? What do you think? I don't know. Charlotte, you want to take a stab at it? What's an education record for us?
Anything with grades or attendance or how they're doing in a particular class.
Okay. So, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Who was that?
It was Rick. I think it's more simple than that. Even an application that doesn't have any grades or anything on it, a simple application that identifies the student and is maintained by the school is considered an education record. Yeah.
What I'm thinking, here's what I'm thinking, Rick. I'm trying to keep this into how the faculty, right? We had the administrative change. Now, faculty's probably not going to see the application.
That's true.
What would you see teacher?
Well, they would see C-View, information in C-View. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, you can. Most of you can. What about dropout?
Anything anything in Canvas, whether it's the dropout detective or otherwise.
Very good.
Yes.
Very good.
So any
Good.
documentation between the faculty member and the student that's recorded online, right?
Right. There you go. Dropout detective, you want to be very careful with, right? Because that's got some things in it. So just think of it that way, So FERPA is files, document, emails, computer files, computer screens, printouts, tapes, photos, film, right? Like if you get a student, I'll say they have the little photo icon in Canvas, right? The students, some of them do. Can you take that picture and just share it with the world? Probably not, right? You want to think about that. So,
We actually had a student try to do that a few years ago.
did you? Yeah,
He
it could happen.
was trying to date one of the other students, and that was a mess.
Yeah, that can happen where they say, "Oh, I want to reach out." So you don't share their emails or their personal information or their phone with other students. You just got to be careful with that. Limited disclosure. Disclosure of educational records does not violate FERPA if either of these conditions is satisfied. The student gives written consent for disclosure. Now, is there a form that we need? Let's say I'm trying to think from a faculty perspective where you have that. Lydia, can you think of a time that faculty would be asked for or need this consent? I'm just trying to think.
Well, I've had a parent ask me when I was teaching live in Amarillo, I've had a parent come to the classroom and ask me how their daughter was doing. I can't do that unless I have a FERPA signed piece of paper from that student.
Yeah, is there a form?
That's correct. I have had parents will call instructors, parents will call me and ask for information about the student. And we simply can't give it unless we have that signed form.
Well, that's not just parents. That's girlfriends, boyfriends, people that say they're a brother. And
anyone other than the student, we cannot give information to unless we have a signed form.
So just if you get the request as a faculty member, you need to, if you want to get the question answered, reach out to your program director, reach out to Lydia. And there's a form that I think we have a form, as I understand it, right, Lydia? Have you seen that form? I haven't seen it.
Yes, there is a form that the students fill out. They do it in the enrollment process. They can do it and they can request to add anyone at any time. But yes, we do have a physical form that they've signed that we keep on file. And if the faculty need to know, hey, is this person on their FERPA? I can always look that up for them.
There you go. Okay.
I have a question on this, Larry. In previous FERPA lectures, it's been a debate, but even a teacher like myself in medical education, I can't just go to whoever's teaching business and ask for Joe Blow's grades because I have no need to know, even though I'm faculty at the same school.
Yeah,
to know
that's right.
Joe Blow's business school grades.
That's true. And we'll get into that training. You're absolutely right. No, it's a need to know deal, even among ourselves, even though we're employees, right? So a FERPA exception may permit disclosure without students' consent, right? So written consent. A student's written consent must be signed, dated, and identify the record to be disclosed, purpose of disclosure, and person, organization, or institution to whom the disclosure may be made. Again, work with Lydia, work with your program chair if there's a need to know and you're getting a question from a student, there you go. If you're getting a question from a parent or a husband or somebody that's a friend, you just can't give it. It's just
even if they're attending the school as well. We have that situation where we have moms and daughters attending, and just because they're attending the school doesn't make them qualified under FERPA.
Right. Okay, so as specific as possible, and directory information. FERPA allows for disclosure of directory information if the information is not harmful. Students can opt out. Directory information not disclosed for students who do not opt out. VISTA defines directory information as student name, dates of attendance, major field of study and awards, credential awarded. And so like a class list is Is that a directory? What do you think? What do you think, Neil? Do you think it's a class list is a directory?
You mean a class roster?
Yep. You know how it says people in the classroom of LMS, right? And you see the list and you got their contact information. That's a directory, right? Or not?
I would. Yeah, I mean, if you're just, well, I don't know. I think that's a little more invasive than dates of attendance. But if you're allowed to disclose major, I think you could probably be able to disclose a class list. But I don't know.
Again, you have access to see it, so you can contact the students, but you don't want to share that information with other students, right?
And that's really important because we had an incident where someone just called and said, "Does Joe Blow go to school there?" And someone said, "Yeah, he's in the whatever class," and there was a drive-by. So, it happens. Bad things happen.
Yep. Well, and isn't the school allowed to designate what they consider directory information versus what's not directory information?
Yeah, and the previous slide did that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can go back. I don't know if I can go back.
Well, and to Neil's point, I think that you can do that within the class without having an issue. But to provide an entire directory to students that are not in same programs, I think we'd run into some issues there.
Right.
Yeah, I would say just really keep it close to the vest. Don't give out contact information even to other students. Just let that alone. Disclosure to the parents, we've talked about that. What if they're paying for the students' schooling? They still don't have the right unless we have the consent in their file, and that's important that we know that. What if they drive the student to school every day? Again, no, we need the signed form. So,
yeah, there's no activity there's no activity that can be performed that overrides the Privacy Act.
Right.
So whether you're paying for it or making them lunch or driving them to school, none of those acts override the right to privacy.
Yeah, and I think this is going to answer your question and support the statement you made. I think it was Ann that made the statement. School officials are allowed to educational if they have a legitimate educational interest in the student's records. Instructors, administrators, members of committees, attorneys, who has legitimate education, someone who needs to review an educational record in order to fulfill the responsibility with VISTA. And that'll be all you. But it's your students that you need to worry about it. You can't call a police and say, "I want to know about the math student." Just don't want to do that. And really, we got to be very careful about that. And I know we get to know these students, and maybe we even chat via email. In fact, in our case, really, we have to be concerned about what we write and how we say it. Particularly if you're putting it on email, because email has trails and it's just not a good thing. My policy is I just don't say anything. I try to imagine whatever I say. I try to say, well, what would that look like if it were the headline of a newspaper, right? And if you're saying something that would look rather embarrassing if it were headlining in the newspaper, you're probably not saying it right. You want to think about that. So articulate as our emergency exception means a school official can explain why available information supports a reasonable belief that there's a significant threat. We had a hurricane in Texas, right? But generally, we're probably not going to face that, but we might, in which case, like Lydia, student services and program directors will be working to solve whatever problems. Lydia, do you want to expand on that? Anything you want to say on that one? Emergency exception? No? Okay. I guess not. Lydia, are you there? She was. I heard her earlier. Okay.
Might be on
What's that?
You
Larry,
might get all the student.
Beth had a really good question. Do you mind if she interjects a second?
No, who is that? That had the question? Go ahead.
Beth, can
Hi.
you say it? Okay, good.
Okay, hopefully, okay, you can hear me. Good. So I've worked schools before, and their FERPA regulations, we take it to extra realms. But basically, if a student contacts me and they're contacting me via email that was not set up with the school, it's an email that wasn't in the records of the school, that I can't communicate with that student because it's not the email that was set up. Because anybody can impersonate that student and say, I'm so and so, but it's not the email that was set up through their advisor, and there's an issue with that too. And the general rule I follow when it came to, dealing with FERPA with students is that if someone contacts me about a student, I'm contacted because my daughter's in the hospital or whatever it happens to be, the going rate that I pretty much have always followed is that I cannot confirm or deny that this student attends our school.
That's right.
And that's pretty much what it is. But the email thing is, I wonder if you guys have that kind of rule too about the email where if it's not the one set up with the school, is that an issue too with that?
That's a great point.
That's a great point.
I can answer that. I can answer that to a certain extent, Larry.
Oh, you're back with us. There you are.
I know I couldn't find the mute button. I'm sorry. We do not have a hard and fast rule on if it's not the email we have set up that we don't communicate with them. However, I am always very cautious. If it comes from an email that isn't set up, that we don't recognize, I always ask the student to verify some of their personal information. There are things that the student can give to me that's going to tell me who they are. And I will sometimes do that in a phone call, say, hey, I don't recognize your email. Can you give me a call? And we can chat about it.
That's good.
That way we're not getting caught. We're not giving them any information, but if they call us, then we have an opportunity to verify their identity.
Right, Lydia, to follow up on that. So if a student does contact me in that way, using an email that was not familiar, do I just kick it off to you to confirm the information, the identifying information, or do I try to do that myself?
You can do it yourself.
Okay.
Okay, good conversation and a great point. Thank you for bringing it up because, again, we have to think about this as, since we're all virtual, kind of a little different. And so the purpose of today is to make us aware and just be sensitive to FERPA and what that means. Okay, so disclosures, and again, from a faculty perspective, I'm just trying to think, I can't imagine any of this really matters to you, administrators, of course, program directors, of course, but to you probably doesn't. Although if a student said, geez, Mark was my teacher, and then Mark gets a call from an attorney and says, I want you to send me the grade and every note that you put on in Dropout Detective. You got an issue, right, Mark? And so you gotta think. And if that were to happen, I would ask you to reach out to me, reach out to the program directors or Lydia, and we'll help you through that. Just don't respond by copying off what you see in Campus View or Canvas, right? So Campus View, contact manager notes can be subpoenaed. So we have to be very careful what we say. Sometimes it's not what we're saying, it's how we say it, number one. And sometimes we're better off to be very general and vague about what we're saying in Campus View and Dropout Detective. So Lydia's my best example. She has to do this all the time. Lydia, do you want to chime in and talk a little bit about how things should be said in Dropout Detective and Campus View?
Yes, absolutely. Like Larry said, you want to keep everything pretty general, especially when it comes to medical conditions. If a student discloses to you that they have a medical condition and they give you all the dirty details, do not put that in Campus View. Just put medical condition and you're covered. Also, when writing notes in Campus View, it's really important that you stick to facts and not your personal opinion. Like, I felt this student was, crazy or something like that. If you wouldn't want an attorney or your mom to read it, don't put it in Campus View.
Good comments and wise wisdom. And remember, what would it look like if it were a headline in the paper and your name were attached to it? That's a really good test. Providing student access. Students do have the right to inspect and review their own records. Providing copies of records for inspection is not required unless not doing so would prevent the student from obtaining access. Students do not have the right to inspect, view financial records of their parents, confidential letters of recommendation, any information not specific to the individual. See, it's working both ways, right? Private information, student rights, and others. We have to protect the privacy of the student and others, and really everyone. That's what it's really pretty. We have common sense, but sometimes we just slip and don't think about something that we say or put in an email. So we have to do that. They have the right to challenge the information. If a student requests a change or correction and the school declines, the student has the right to a formal hearing. We'll do all that for you. I can't imagine that you're going to get hung up in that too often, but if you do, the very best thing to do is to partner with administration to help you to resolve it. And so let us know, give us a heads up, and let us be your partner to help you with whatever issues that may come about. They can challenge the information in their educational records that they believe is inaccurate. This right cannot be used to challenge a grade, an individual's opinion, or a substantive decision made by the school about the student. They can challenge a grade, and we have a process for dealing with that, with the challenge. But, once it's final, it's final. It's not really a FERPA thing. So with that, they can request access. We must maintain a record and a log of each person who has requested or has been given access to student educational records. So if you've got a student who's requested access, you need to inform your program leader, Lydia, services, or one of us in administration. Don't just hold it out there. If you've had a request, let us know that you've had a request, and we'll log it. Date and purpose of information. Normally the registrar is really good about keeping track of that sort of stuff, but if on the side that happens, just let us partner with you. Show what you know. So a recruiting firm calls with a good job information to share with students with a GPA 3 or better. They just need the names and addresses. Well, what do you think? And you're liable to get a call, Dan, right? Twana, you're liable to get a call. You're an HR professional. You're liable to get a call. Chris, you might. Peggy, you might. Can you share that, Peggy? What do you think? Peggy Jones? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I had to find the mute button. I would say, no, you cannot share that information.
Cannot do it. You might refer them to career services, and career services maybe can help them, but they're not going to give the names of the students and addresses. The local police department calls and asks you to verify if one of your students was scheduled for class on a specific date, citing involvement in a current investigation concerning the student. What do you think? Ron, can you give it? give the information out?
No,
What do
they
you think?
can't.
Cannot, right?
Cannot.
Sherry, you want to talk a little bit about that as being a former prosecutor for criminal investigation? Any comments on that?
Actually, you asked the right person. Ron is a police officer, and he's a great person.
Oh, I picked him then, so he's liable to be one of the guys calling. I cannot do it.
I could not do better than Ron would.
Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, I think they would need some type of a warrant.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Kelly's a student who is not a dependent of her parents. Kelly's father calls and shows up at the registrar's office with Kelly's handwritten consent to authorize the school to share her information. He requests a copy of Kelly's transcript. Does the consent authorize giving Kelly's father a copy of her of the transcript? What do we think about that one?
This is Nathan Mitchell. I would say absolutely not.
Why?
Well, for starters, we can't even verify that she wrote it herself, nor is it the proper form we need on file at the campus to do so.
Good. Sherry, Rick, you want to comment on that?
Mr. Massey, you want to go?
Sorry, I was on mute. I would call the student and say, someone here saying they're your father wants authorization to get a copy of your transcript. Is this actually your father?
Is this your signature? Is this your...
Yeah, ask for all that, because sometimes an emergency comes up and they can't fill out the form and something's going on, but we have to have verbal consent from them for that to happen. So
signature needs to be specifically what they can get.
And what they can have access to.
That could work, but I prefer it to be a regular official form.
Yeah, that would only be in an emergency, like your next bullet point.
Yeah, you get a phone call from a frantic individual, must get in touch with family emergency.
I have a question. Why, as far as us as instructors, why isn't our guidance for any of those types of questions, we ask them to contact somebody, the proper entity in administration?
I would.
Yeah.
Go up the chain.
Well, and the other thing is please give me your name and your telephone number, and we'll be happy to find that person if we have that person.
Yeah, that's probably a better approach, isn't it? It's probably a better approach. And again, involve us. Let us help you be FERPA wise. Okay, so what is FERPA again? Control and access protecting privacy of student records. That's a very, very critical thing. Consciously aware of others who may be able to overhear your conversation. Don't have discussions about students in an open area. In our case, there could be issues if you're at work and you're talking to. You got to be careful. I'm just thinking of others around conversations. I'm thinking what can be recorded on the voicemail. You just got to be careful. Keep confidential paper in the files. In our case, again. Most of it's electronic, so you have it show on the computer screen, right? If you have it, you want to log it off. So keep your computer and campus view passwords secure from other individuals. Like maybe you have a brother at home and they get your password view or into your class and they want the student stuff, you want to keep them secure. So be FERPA wise. Lydia, what would you add to this presentation that maybe I left off?
One thing that is not in this presentation because it's geared towards ground campuses, but that we do a lot of is leave voicemails. Be really, really careful if you're leaving a voicemail on a student's phone, because we don't want to violate FERPA in a voicemail on accident. It's really easy to do by, hey, this is so-and-so, your instructor, and I'm just wondering why you missed this assignment. Like, we can't leave that kind of information on a voicemail.
That's a FERPA violation.
Yeah.
Perfect. Right.
Then why are we leaving any voicemail?
We say, this is Richard from Vista College. Please give me a call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no information released there.
Okay. Lydia, I have a question about your, every week we put out the pre-SAP and SAP student list. And that's always kind of bugged me about FERPA, because if it's just the medical type students, then I'm willing to look at them. But the rest of the students do not pertain to me in any way, shape, or form. And I just feel like we're sharing information about these students that's not really quite kosher.
I'll tell you, that's one reason why I filter mine out before I send them to my teachers and just have the business students on there. Because they don't need to be seeing the medical people, the criminal justice people.
Thank you, Ann. That's a really good observation, Ann, and that's really important that the students that you've got right in your college.
Yeah. Well, it's important for all the students, no matter, we all have students that aren't doing well, and we all know that, but by FERPA, we're supposed to limit who knows about things.
Great catch. Good comment. We need to all help each other to be FERPA wise, and that you just did. Sherry, any comments before anything that I left off that you think we better?
I just have a quick one. I don't know if everybody saw the news article about, I want to say 5 months ago or so, there was a guy on an airplane, and he tweeted that the guy sitting next to him was grading papers on the plane, and he's like, dude, if your name is like Dwight Howard at Harvard, just know you just bombed your final. And he put it on Twitter. I don't know how many of you saw it. He put it on Twitter. It just exploded on Twitter. And that's a huge FERPA violation. So make sure, if you're grading things on a plane or at a restaurant or something, that you've got your screen so students can't see, or people next to you can't see what you're doing or whose paper it is or what you're doing with it.
Great comment. Thank you. Yeah. Rick, any comments, things that maybe I should have shared that didn't?
No, you shared everything. My closing remark is, don't give information to anybody that you don't know. That you don't know. There's a forum for question everybody. That's not the student.
Well, and again, yes, please.
This is Dan Wersler. I wanted a clarification, if I could. Make phone calls to students on a voice phone number that they give us.
Somebody. No, somebody's moving things around. Needs to mute. Go ahead, Dan. Let's try it now.
Okay. A lot of us make phone calls to students on their voicemail on a phone number that they have left as official phone number to reach them for the school. And on these voicemails, a lot of us make appeals to them. I noticed that you haven't got in assignments, and it's kind of an encouraging this sort of thing. Now, Rick said, just leave on the voicemail your name and your phone number. Well, that's not very, that's factual, but that's not very enticing, and that's not warm, and that's not, you see where I'm going. Am I breaking FERPA if I say, I noticed that you missed your last 2 assignments? I'd really like you to get in touch with me. I'm willing to work with you. Just give me a call, and kind of make an emotional appeal to them. When they get the voicemail, they can then listen to the instructor's voice, and they say, wow, that sounds like that instructor is willing to work with me. Okay, I'll give them a call and then start working with them again. Or do I have to give up that approach because I'm breaking FERPA laws?
Yeah, I would give up the approach and take a Rick approach.
Okay.
Because if you don't know, you're saying something about the student that somebody else shouldn't have. So I would just say, hey, this is Dan. I'm your teacher. Give me a call. I need to chat with you. Just in a friendly way. I mean,
Okay.
what else
Okay,
can you?
you're good.
Yeah.
There
Thanks
was
for
a
the clarification.
good question on the chat was, does this count for texting as well? When we text our students?
Yes.
Yeah, it should.
You have to kind of walk a fine line because we do want to make that emotional plea to a student and say, hey, I'm concerned. How can I help? But I never put any specific grade information like, oh my gosh, you have an F, or you've missed 6 assignments, or anything like that in a text message that someone else.
That's the key. You can say, I'm concerned about you, worried about you, haven't heard from you. None of that stuff is FERPA stuff.
Yeah, good.
Any emotions that you give them is perfectly acceptable.
Good.
Yeah,
Well,
always
I
remember
think we
texting
had
is a permanent record.
Yeah, but again, if you're general, right? If you're not specific, if you
Don't say you missed an assignment. Don't say you're due on a quiz.
right. Yeah. Well, overall, we're doing pretty darn well, folks. It's not that we're not, but we needed to have this session just to be aware, and that we're just that much better by being aware. FERPA wise, as the slides say. Thank you for being here. Let's have Dr. Waller, Art Waller, maybe give us the closing remarks if we would. Art, you're here, I think, still on. Yeah, there you are.
Yes, Laurie, I'm running around a little bit today.
Yes, I know about that.
And I've heard of the training a few times, and the dialogue seemed to be very crisp and exciting. I think it's correct, Larry, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can be pretty specific within Canvas when you're sending emails to students about what your concerns are.
I dropped off and I needed to bring the money back today. Yeah, but I wanted to. Is she here?
Somebody wanted to bring the money back. That's
How are
great.
you today? Okay, quick question. Did you say they won't be ready till Wednesday? The skirts.
So
When is next Wednesday?
anyway,
Looks like it's Sandy McDonald's.
Yeah, the answer is within Canvas, within the system, you could be a little more specific, right? Because you're student to student, right? It's the exposure to other students that we're trying to protect.
Right. So there are
But if it's
opportunities to
student
be more
student, it's within
specific,
the system,
just so everyone's clear. But I've really enjoyed the training. It's great to see everyone's, most everyone's face on our Zoom technology, and appreciate all you guys do. Have a great evening, and hopefully you don't have any issues with your money like that lady did on the call. We'll talk to all you soon.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to y'all later.
All right. Thanks, Larry.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks, everyone.
Merry Christmas, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Merry Christmas.